Hare Krishna. Thank you all so much for joining us in this Srimad Bhagavatam series. We are doing a chapter-wise summary of all the chapters in Srimad Bhagavatam. And today we will be covering Canto 3, Chapter 4. So thank you all so much for joining us. Chapter 4 is entitled Vidura Approaches Maitreya. We'll start with the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before we move on to chapter 4, can we have someone in the audience tell me how chapter 3 ended? Induleka Karuna Mataji, since you covered it last time, would you like to tell us?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Chapter 3 talked about the pastimes of Lord Krishna in Dwaraka, and it ended with how they were ending their pastimes. Lord Krishna, along with all the Yadus.
So who was talking to you, Mataji?
Oh, Uddhava was talking, sorry. Uddhava was explaining, Mataji.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. So that is the context that we are going to use to understand chapter 4. So at the end of chapter 3, as Induleka Karuna Mataji mentioned, the pastimes of Krishna were being discussed. Krishna's pastimes in Mathura and Dwaraka. And towards the end of chapter, the discussion about the withdrawal of Krishna's pastimes was touched upon, how the Yadu dynasty would be soon annihilated and how Krishna would withdraw his pastimes. So on that note, the previous chapter ended. So now, chapter 4, let's get into chapter 4 and see what happened after that. The beginning of chapter 4 is the description of the disappearance of the Yadus. What happened was, the Yadus, they all went to Prabhas Kshetra. They were inspired to go to this place and perform some rituals for the departed ancestors. So after performing all the ceremonies that they had decided to perform, they took the remnants of the foodstuffs, and as they were Kshatriyas, they were allowed to drink a kind of liquor that was made out of rice. On certain occasions, Srila Prabhupada says that Kshatriyas can partake liquor. Now, this is not a very gross liquor that is present in today's time and age, but anyhow, it is made out of rice, this particular liquor. And taking that liquor, what happened was they lost their sense of what is right and wrong. They started using harsh words and they were accusing each other. They picked up weapons, which was nothing but canes that were present there, and they started attacking each other in anger. So in anger, the Yadus actually destroyed each other. How did they destroy each other? Srimad Bhagavatam gives this analogy. Just like how bamboo creates friction in the forest, and a forest fire begins and the forest fire consumes everything. Similarly, there is no external cause for the destruction of the Yadus. The Yadus were not actually destroyed because of a particular cause. It was a magical performance performed by the Lord. The Lord desired that it was time for the Yadus to get annihilated. Just like how naturally bamboos have friction with each other and fire begins, similarly, without any external cause, what happened was that the Yadus were inspired to partake liquor, and they lost their sense of friendship, and they started picking up canes and they were fighting with each other, killing each other, and the Yadus came to an end. Now, one may question, how is it that the Lord's associates can be destroyed in his presence? Actually, these associates who had come to Prabhas Kshetra were the Devata portions of the Yadus. So the Yadus are actually eternal associates of the Lord. So one may question, how come the eternal associates of the Lord can actually fight like this? But we must remember that the Devata portions of the Devata portions also participated by entering the eternal associates. The eternal Yadus had Devata portions in them, and these Devata portions were actually sent to Prabhas Kshetra so that they could be dispatched. But however, how was it perceived? Among common people thought that the Yadavas destroyed each other. The actual reason is that the destruction of the Yadavas was carried out under the supervision of the Lord so that the Devta portions could actually go back to their original position. So after this destruction happened, what happened was the Lord, he sipped some water and he went to the bank of the river Saraswati and sat under a tree. Now you see in this picture, actually Krishna and Balram are also involved in this fight with each other, but Krishna and Balram don't get destroyed at this point in time. Krishna, he goes to the bank of river Saraswati. He sits under a tree after sipping water. So we saw Uddhava was actually narrating this entire story, right? From Krishna's pastimes, in the previous chapter till now, it is Uddhava who's talking. So Uddhava, he told, this Lord who's Prapannarti Hara. Prapanna means a surrendered person. Arti means distress. Hara is to destroy. So one who destroys the suffering of the surrendered, he is Prapannarti Hara. That was one of the names of Krishna. So Uddhava says, this Prapannarti Hara, he told me to go to Badrikashram from Dwaraka. He went and sat under a tree, and what did he tell Uddhava? He told Uddhava, you go to Badrikashram. Now, why is the Lord addressed as Prapannarti Hara in this verse? There is two reasons why Uddhava addressed Sri Krishna as Prapannarti Hara. Because Krishna is the one who was to relieve Uddhava from the feeling of distress that he is going to have in the separation that he's going to feel from Krishna. Because very soon, Krishna is actually going to leave this world. And at that time, Uddhava did not want to see this. He wanted to be with the sages in Badrikashram. So in that sense, Krishna was actually relieving the distress that Uddhava was having in his heart. So Uddhava calls Krishna here as Prapannarti Hara. And not only that, he would also be relieving the distress of all the sages in Badrikashram. When Uddhava goes and speaks Harikatha to all the sages would also be relieved from the distress of this world. They would be receiving bhakti, vairagya, jnana, all of this, and they would be hearing about the pastimes of Krishna. So for these two reasons, Uddhava calls Sri Krishna as Prapannarti Hara. And Prapannarti Hara, what did he tell Uddhava? He told Uddhava to go to Badrikashram. Actually, Uddhava, he didn't want to go to Badrikashram. Uddhava wanted to go to the spiritual world. However, what happened was, he was instructed by Krishna. At this point in time, the Uddhava Gita was spoken. Uddhava Gita is seen in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhaagvatam. But actually, when was it spoken? It was spoken by Krishna to Uddhava at this point in time, before Krishna left this world and before Uddhava proceeded to Badrikashram. So there is a small introduction to Uddhava Gita here, but the Uddhava Gita is not discussed here. It is discussed in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So before Krishna sent Uddhava to Badrikashram, he told him the signs of Krishna consciousness through the Uddhava Gita. and then he asked him to go to Badrikashram. So before he went to Badrikashram, first Uddhava went with Sri Krishna, to the place where he was sitting. He heard the entire Uddhava Gita, and then later he decided to depart. So now when Uddhava saw Krishna at this place in Badrikashram, when he was sitting under the tree, how did he see the Lord? This is what Uddhava describes. Okay, so first few verses, they give us a synopsis of what is going to happen. What is going to happen? Uddhava is going to go, he's going to see the Lord, he's going to hear the Uddhava Gita, and he's going to go to Badrikashram. Before that, what happens? The Yadavas, they fight with each other with canes and they destroy each other, just like how bamboo by friction causes a forest fire. Krishna leaves that place and he goes and sits under the tree. He sips some water. He sits under the tree near River Saraswati. So this is a synopsis of what to expect. What are the flow of events? So after talking about the flow of events, now the focus is on how Uddhava actually catches his first glimpse of Krishna when Krishna is sitting under the tree on the banks of River Saraswati. So you see this picture, it's a very beautiful painting. Here is the banks of the river Saraswati, and there is a beautiful banyan tree, and Krishna is sitting beneath the banyan tree with one leg over the thigh of the other leg. It's a very beautiful posture. And then Uddhava comes and he sees Krishna. Okay. So the person standing there is Uddhava, and the person sitting under the banyan tree is actually Krishna. Both of them look very similar because Uddhava, because of his very close friendship with Krishna, he always looked like Krishna. That's how Srimad Bhaagvatam describes him. So how did Uddhava catch the first glimpse of Krishna? Adraksham ekamasinam vichinvan dayitam patim Sriniketam saraswatyam kritaketam maketanam. Uddhava arrived and he saw the Lord deeply thinking, taking shelter on the banks of river Saraswati, though he himself is the shelter of the goddess of fortune. It's a very beautiful verse. Our Supreme Lord, everything belongs to him. The entire universe is under the shelter of the Supreme Lord. This Supreme Lord is the shelter of the goddess of fortune. The goddess of fortune is blessing this entire universe with everything. And her shelter is the Supreme Lord. So with this means that the Supreme Lord possesses everything that exists. But how is Krishna coming and sitting? Krishna appears like he's like given up everything. Just like how a renunciant gives up everything and he takes shelter under a tree. Similarly, Krishna, who's actually the proprietor of everything, appears to have given up everything, and he goes and he sits under this wonderful tree. Shyamavaditam virajam prashantarunalochanam dhurbhischaturbirbhaditam pita kaushambarena cha. The Lord's body is blackish, but it is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and very, very beautiful. His eyes are always peaceful, and they are reddish like the rising morning sun. I could immediately recognize him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His 4 hands, different symbolic representations, and yellow silken garment. So this is how the Lord was seated under the banyan tree. His body was blackish. He is the very embodiment of Satchit Ananda. His eyes are very peaceful, yet they are reddish, like the rising morning sun. So generally, when we say someone's eyes is reddish, generally they are angry, right? But here, the Supreme Lord, his eyes were very peaceful. The corners were reddish. How was it reddish? Was it like the blazing sun in the afternoon? No, it was reddish like the rising, pleasing morning sun. It was very, very pleasing. So looking at this beautiful features, immediately Uddhava could recognize this is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is the proprietor of everything. But it appeared that he has given up everything and he's resting behind, he's resting on the trunk of the banyan tree. Vama urau adhishtritya dakshinangri saroruham apashitra bhakshashvatam aksharam tyakta pippalam. The Lord was sitting, taking rest against a young banyan tree with his right lotus foot on the left thigh. And although he had left all household comforts, he looked quite cheerful in that posture. So this is a very beautiful description of the posture of the Lord. It's very beautiful because the Lord had chosen to take his seat at the trunk of a banyan tree, keeping the banyan tree behind him. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that this banyan tree is like the material world. The material world, Maya, is always at the back of Krishna. And here it is described as a banyan tree that was very, very young. It says Arbaka Ashwatam, very young banyan tree. This universe that we are in is also a very young universe. It is a very small universe. It's Arbaka. It's very, very small. So this banyan tree is compared to the universe. And how is the Lord sitting? The Lord is sitting in such a way that the banyan tree is at his back. So beautiful. And he looked very cheerful in that posture. He had left all household comforts. Now, what does that really mean? It means that the Lord was actually ready to give up everything in this universe and move on to perform pastimes in the next universe. So that is the meaning of how his demeanor was. So the Lord appeared very renounced. He had given up all the household comforts, right? That means he had given up his desire to continue performing his pastimes in this universe. He kept the universe to his back and he was ready to move on. So this posture of the Lord is very, very significant. So like this, the Lord was ready to give up his pastimes. But when Uddhava and Krishna were talking, at that time, suddenly one person arrived. Who is this person who arrived? Is none other than the sage Maitreya. Yadrichaya, without any cause, without any foretelling, or without any reason. Who came? Sage Maitreya Rishi came. So how did he come out of his own accord? He came out of his own accord because he had Ajnata Sukriti. How do we develop Ajnat Sukriti? Ajnat Sukriti means having Sukriti or mercy without any reason, without any real, like substantial reason. How do we develop that Sukriti or good fortune? How do we get that? We get that when we do accidental devotional service. Even without knowing, sometimes we happen to do devotional service. At that time, we accrue a little bit of Sukriti or a good credit in our balance. And that comes to play. One day, we actually get the benefit of hearing directly from the Lord's devotee. And in fact, sometimes we might even get the personal association of the Lord. So this happened with Maitreya Rishi. This Maitreya Rishi, here in this verse, he is described as a friend of Vyasa. Because Maitreya Rishi and Vyasa learned from their spiritual master, Parashara Muni, who was the actual father of Vyasadeva. So in one sense, Maitreya Rishi and Vyasa are classmates. So they are dear friends. So Maitreya Rishi, a friend of Vyasa, how did he arrive? He arrived on his own accord, Yadrichaya. Why? Because of the Ajnat Sukriti, some accidental devotional service that he had performed. Now Maitreya, he stood there when he saw the Lord with lowered shoulders and folded palms. However, Krishna particularly was glancing at Uddhava very, very favorably. So you see this picture, Maitreya is there. Yes, the Lord acknowledges, but the Lord specifically acknowledges Uddhava. Why does he specifically acknowledge Uddhava? Because Uddhava was a pure devotee. Whereas Maitreya Rishi was a Jnana Mishra Bhakta, Jnana Bhakta, meaning he had some monastic viewpoint about the Lord. He was not 100% pure devotee. So Krishna, he tends to favor his devotees to a greater extent. Though Krishna is Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, He's very he's equal to all living entities. Still, towards his devotee, he has a soft corner. So because of that, he was giving some extra attention to Uddhava, who was seated at his lotus feet and who desired to hear more from the Lord. At that time, Krishna told Uddhava, "Oh Uddhava, you are indeed Vasu. You are one of the Vasus. You are one of the Ashtavasus. And I knew your desire. Hmm? Your desire was to come and associate with me. I have fulfilled your desire in this birth. In this birth, you became a very close associate of mine and you're able to associate with me." So when he tells this to Uddhava, he was indicating indirectly the importance of devotee association to Maitreya. Because this Vasu, one of the Ashtavasus, he had this very strong desire to come and associate with the Lord and get the association of the Lord's devotees. Krishna was praising Uddhava and also indicating to Maitreya that if you take the association of such a person, even your life will become perfect. So he looked at Uddhava and he told, "My dear Uddhava, you were a Vasu. You wanted to have my association. You got my association. And after this life, this is your last life. After this life, you will go to Vaikuntha. Even I am about to disappear now. But I have favored you because you had this genuine devotion in your heart. I gave you this great boon of having my association. However, it is time for you to actually move on to another place, and it is time for me to disappear from this world." Then he tells Uddhava, "In the beginning of creation, I spoke to Brahma all about me in the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. And I'm giving the same knowledge to you." So this is when Uddhava hears the Uddhava Gita directly from Krishna. So Uddhava was very, very overwhelmed with the Lord's reciprocation and the knowledge that the Lord gave him. And he was wiping his tears. He looked at the Lord and he tells the Lord, "My dear Lord, actually, I don't want anything. I just want to have your devotional service. I don't want all the purusharthas, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. I don't want any of that. I don't even want mukti. All that I want is that I'm very, very anxious to serve your lotus feet." There are two verses. I'll read the translation. It is very, very beautiful. Let's read those two verses to understand more. Would anyone like to read the English in these two verses? Anyone would like to volunteer? Yeah, you can read. My dear Lord.
Hare Krishna Mataji. My Lord, even the learned sages become disturbed in their intelligence when they see that your greatness engages in fruitive work, although you are free from all desires. That you take birth, although you are unborn. That you flee out of fear of the enemy and take shelter in a fort, although you are the controller of the invincible time. And that you enjoy householder life surrounded by many women, although you enjoy in yourself.
Preethivilasini Mataji, next verse.
Hare Krishna. O my Lord, your eternal self is never divided by the influence of time, and there is no limitation to your perfect knowledge. Thus, you were sufficiently able to consult with yourself, yet you called upon me for consultation as if bewildered, although you are never bewildered, and this act of yours bewilders me. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful. So see how Uddhava is glorifying Krishna. He tells Krishna that I just want your service. I don't want anything else. You are so inconceivable. You have taken birth, yet you are unborn, and you pure personified is afraid of you, but you flee in fear out of your mother's stick. So you have such different qualities, and you attract all the devotees by exhibiting your beautiful qualities. And the best part is, I had the association of being very close to you. And at one point in time, when you acted like as if you were not able to take a decision, You called upon me and you consulted with me, considering me as your minister. Actually, there was a point when Krishna called Uddhava and he asked Uddhava, what should I do? I'm not sure what I should do. Yudhishthir Maharaj is performing a Rajasuya Yajna. At the same time, Jarasandha and other kings have to be vanquished. So what should I do first? He calls Uddhava and he asks the serious question. It is not that Krishna is, asking to test Uddhava or something. He genuinely asks Krishna. He genuinely asks Uddhava. Does Krishna not know this? Krishna knows it very well. Krishna knows what to do very well. But still, very sincerely, very, very sincerely, very genuinely, he asks. Just like how people talk about in Damodar Leela, the famous question is, was Krishna really afraid of the stick? The answer is devotees say that he was really afraid of the stick. He was very genuinely afraid. But can the one whom fear personified is afraid of be afraid of anything? That is inconceivable. So similarly, Uddhava is telling it is inconceivable to understand you. You perform such interesting activities and you have such beautiful qualities. You called upon me to consult when you wanted consultation. You acted like you were bewildered, but actually you are never bewildered. This act of yours bewilders me. So that's how Uddhava glorifies Krishna. Then when Uddhava expressed his desires, he expressed his desire to understand more about what the Lord had enlightened Brahma in the Chaturshloki. And Krishna, he very gladly agrees and he teaches him everything. So who is listening to all this when Krishna is speaking to Uddhava? It is Maitreya Rishi. So Maitreya Rishi is also a recipient of this knowledge. Now, Uddhava, after hearing the entire Uddhava Gita, he decides to leave. Why does he desire to leave? It was the instruction of the Lord. It was the instruction of the Lord that he should move on to Badrikashram. In fact, Uddhava felt that it would be better for him to actually move on to Badrikashram and get the association of the sages than look at the departure of the Lord and suffer in the separation from the Lord. So, he understood that knowledge mitigates grief and Uddhava pacifies himself and he decides to leave. But when Uddhava was going towards Badrikashram, at that time, Vidura comes and he asks him to please enlighten him with the knowledge that he had heard from Krishna. Though Uddhava was very, very competent because he had heard directly from the Lord, he was the Lord's associate, he was very capable of explaining everything to Vidura. But Uddhava holds back and he tells Vidura, he tells Vidura that actually I'm not competent to tell you. It is better that you hear from Maitreya Rishi, because Maitreya Rishi is very advanced in knowledge. He's a very senior person. He's elderly, and it will be appropriate if you directly hear from Maitreya Rishi. Now, we should all understand that Uddhava was somewhat like a cousin to Krishna, and Vidura was like an uncle, and Maitreya was also a very senior person. So it would be appropriate if Maitreya instructed Vidura. If Uddhava had instructed Vidura, it wouldn't have been appropriate because it is like a youngster speaking all the philosophy to a person who's also a great devotee and who's senior to him. So it will be like breaching the conduct between the elderly people and the youngsters. So therefore, Uddhava, he felt himself incompetent, though he was competent, and he requested that Vidura directly hears from Maitreya. So having said that, he proceeds. And Uddhava, and the reason why Uddhava was chosen to actually go and give association to the sages in Badrikashram and give them the knowledge that he learned from Krishna is because Krishna thought that Uddhava is my foremost devotee. And he is the best person to carry the message about me. What did Krishna want Uddhava to go and speak to the sages in Badrikashram? He wanted to give them a very, very confidential message. The confidential message that Uddhava was supposed to go and give the sages in Badrikashram was about the passing away or the leaving of Krishna, the departure of Krishna to the spiritual world. And also, he wanted Uddhava to enlighten the sages about confidential devotional service, knowledge about himself. So Krishna thought the best person to carry out this task is someone who's equal to me. This is what Krishna says. He thinks in his mind, who is equal to me at this point? He thinks and he decides that it is only Uddhava. Because Uddhava is considered to be a Jivan Mukta. A person who's tormented by the three modes of material nature is not liberated. A person who's not tormented by the three modes of material nature, who's transcendental to the three modes, such a person is equal to Krishna, because Krishna is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. So if a person is equal to Krishna, then he has also transcended the three modes of material nature. And who is such a person? Such a person is considered a Jivan Mukta. Now, Krishna thought in his heart that this Uddhava is indeed a Jivan Mukta. So he is the fit person to go to Badrikashram carrying my message to pacify all the sages. So he sends Uddhava to Badrikashram. So he carries this message not only to the sages, but he also carries the message to the Naranarayan deities who are present in Badrikashram about the departure of Sri Krishna. At this point, when Uddhava was ready to leave, and he takes permission from Vidura, and he tells Vidur that you can please take instructions from Maitreya. At that time, Maitreya, he feels very, very happy in his heart. Not Maitreya, it is Vidura. Vidura feels very, very happy in his heart. And Vidura begins to cry incessantly when he hears the different messages from Uddhava. Why does he cry incessantly? Because the Lord actually thought about Vidura before he left. This is revealed by Maitreya to Vidura in the next few verses in the next chapter. So at this point, when Uddhava was getting ready to go to Badrikashram, and he tells Vidura, my dear Vidura, please take instructions from Maitreya. At that time, he feels very happy that the Lord thought about him. It is such a great fortune if the Lord thinks about us. We are always thinking about, we're not always, but we are trying to think about the Lord. But how fortunate is that person whom the Lord decides to think about? So here is the Vidura, and Krishna was thinking about him. So Vidura begins to cry incessantly, thinking about how fortunate he is that the Lord thought about him. So after this, Vidura, he goes to the banks of the Ganges to meet Maitreya and take instructions from him. It's a very short chapter, actually. I think we are actually ahead of time. I'm sorry. I could have done one more chapter, but I just have summary for this chapter. So here is the summary of this chapter. This chapter is about the disappearance of the Yadus. The Lord meets Uddhava and Maitreya Rishi and gives instructions to Uddhava. He looks at Uddhava more favorably than that of Maitreya Rishi, because Maitreya Rishi had a monistic viewpoint of the Lord, and Uddhava was a surrendered devotee. He gave instructions, he spoke the Uddhava Gita, and Uddhava started off for Badrikashram. When he was going to Badrikashram, Vidura came by, and Vidura asked Uddhav, "Oh, Uddhav, please tell me whatever you learned from the Lord." But then Uddhav thought he's much younger. It is inappropriate for him to give instructions to Vidura. So he tells, please get the knowledge from Maitreya Rishi, who was also present when the Lord instructed me. And we also discussed about Uddhava's very special role, how he was very, very close to the Lord, how the Lord would desire to take some instructions or suggestions from Uddhav. So we discussed about that too. And then Vidura, he gets enlightened and he goes to the banks of the river Ganges to go and meet Maitreya. So hereafter, we are going to see Maitreya and Vidura from the next chapter. I'm sorry, the class is really short, but we'll have to end here. If there are any questions, you can ask. I think it was a very simple session. Any questions, comments, realizations? Please go ahead. Hare Krishna. Yeah, Kirtana Mataji. Yes,
Hare
ma'am.
Krishna, Mataji, Danvat Pranams. Wonderful session, Mataji. Very beautifully you summarized the entire chapter. So my just one silly question maybe, that when you were showing the picture where Krishna was sitting and Uddhava approached him, so why, sorry, why Uddhava saw Krishna in four-handed form?
Oh, the Lord was revealing his identity, meaning like he was ready to go off to the spiritual world and Vaikuntha, meaning he was showing his four-armed form to exhibit his identity, that he is not different from the Lord that people know of, Lord Narayan.
Okay, so he doesn't want, because Uddhava know about Krishna, that Krishna is how he is two-handed form, because he was in Dwarka with Krishna. So in that perspective, I was thinking, but yeah, makes sense. That's
Sometimes,
Lord.
yeah, for the world to know too. Yeah. And Maitreya was there too. And he was also in awe of the Lord. Yeah.
So this Uddhava Gita was spoken in front of Maitreya?
Yes, he must have heard all the instructions, is the understanding that I got from this chapter. Because he's present here, and this is connected to 11th canto. I had this question too, which I asked earlier in one of the Bible sessions. And this is the answer I got, that, and also the commentaries also point to the same thing. The purpose also point to the same thing, that Uddhava Gita was spoken at this time. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Bharat Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Thanks for the nice class, Mataji. Very beautiful presentation. So Mataji, my question is like that, as you told, Uddhava was a younger and therefore he chose the Maitreji to give instructions to Vidurji. So as we see previous in today era also in ISKCON, many younger disciples give lecture, many senior devotees are listening to them. I agree, from the point of view, we have a relation of younger and elder ones, so it should be maintained. Our instructions are properly transferred. If um, elder people give instruction to younger, so that's the concern here. But Sukdev Goswami was also 16 years old, and he gave to spoke Srimad Bhaagvatam. Parikshit Maharaj and many other great sages, Narad Muni and Vyasdev were sitting and listening very seriously to him. So can you show over some shadow on this, Mataji?
Yeah, so here were some personal instructions and a personal conversation that was happening. He didn't feel very competent. Uddhava, being younger, did not feel very competent. It depends on whom you're instructing, at what situation you're instructing. So if someone comes to a younger person for personal instructions, it doesn't work that nicely. However, in the case of Shukdev Goswami, he was a self-realized soul. That's how his introduction itself was. He was a jnani. And people could see the difference. They could just immediately, when he appeared in that assembly, all the sages, they gave the first seat of honor to they all expected that Shukdev Goswami would give instructions to Parikshit Maharaj. It was a unanimous thought that everyone had when Parikshit Maharaj had gone and submitted himself to the sages. Parikshit Maharaj asks two questions, and then, before they can answer, they of course congratulate Parikshit and all that. And then finally, when Shukdev Goswami comes out of his own accord in the assembly, at that time, immediately everyone feels that he's the right person to speak, because he was a jnani. He was at that level that everyone had accepted him. Okay. He was in fact, the ladies, they were thinking that he's much more, self-realized than even Vyasadeva. Right? There is this episode of how the ladies, who were taking bath, they didn't even, bother to actually cover themselves much, because they knew that here is a self-realized person. He's not even going to see anyone based on their bodily features or something like that. So there is a difference in that sense. But the point is, when we are giving personal instructions, it is inappropriate for a young child or a young person to give instructions to a very older person. So this is called as Maryada Vyatikrama. That is the word that is used here. In a general sense, it is not appropriate. But however, self-realized souls who are jnanis, yes, everyone should listen from them. Another answer is that, yes, in a Bhagavatam class, like for example, in the temple, if someone is instructed to speak for a general audience, age should not matter. They should be able to give a Bhagavatam class because Bhagavatam is Bhagavatam, right? But when it comes to personal instructions, it is always better to take from your superiors. Did that make sense? Unless that person.
Yes, Mataji. So like if in day-to-day life, if somebody comes and asks for instruction, like he is not aware about too much devotional service and he asks something, so how to deal with that situation? Then means some senior is not available. So he asked like, I want to means progress in devotional service. So can you guide me on this path? So should
Not
we?
whatever you can share. Something. We don't have to give advice to everyone, but we can share our experiences. We can share the happiness that we have. We can share what we have learned. So sharing, there is no harm. But we don't have to instruct and give, instructions to someone who's much more superior than us. Sharing is.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. They can be guided to their spiritual masters for instructions. So,
Sure, Mataji.
Bhavna Mataji?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Pranam. Thank you for giving such a nice presentation where you explained the transcendental conversation between Lord Krishna and Uddhava. Mataji, I have one question. Like as you mentioned in the presentation that Lord Krishna considers Uddhava as equal to him, but on the other hand, we also read in scriptures that no one is equal or greater than Krishna. Like when Mother Devaki in a previous life asked Krishna to please request Krishna to please come as his son. We want a son like you. But after that, Lord Krishna replied that no one is equal to me or greater than me. So I will only come as your son, as a supreme person. So means how to understand this 2 points as you mentioned over here, like Lord Krishna considers Uddhava as equal to him.
That's an interesting question. So Krishna, very nice analysis. Yeah, Krishna was, we are all qualitatively one with the Lord, right? You know that point. We are all qualitatively one with the Lord, but quantitatively we are different. We all have the capability of coming to the level of Shuddha Sattva, coming to the level of transcending the modes of material nature. We have the capability as spirit souls. All of us have that capability. So if a person has transcended the 3 modes of material nature, who is a Jivan Mukta, qualitatively, he's exhibiting his qualities as being one with the Lord. But is he equal to the Lord in all respects? No, he's not equal to the Lord in all respects. So when Devaki, she asked, I want only the Lord, a child like the Lord, equal to the Lord in all respects. It was not possible because only Krishna is Krishna. No one can be God, right? No one else can be Krishna. So Krishna decided to come. But here Krishna is thinking he is the most qualified because he has qualities like me, meaning he has transcended the modes of material. Did that help, Mataji? Of course, he cannot become equal to Krishna and all.
Yes, Mataji, understood. Mataji, can I ask one more question if time allows?
Yes.
Mataji, means what special we can do for Lord Krishna that Lord Krishna think of us? Means what special devotional service can we do for Lord Krishna?
We can serve his devotees. That's the only thing that pleases Krishna the most.
Yes, Mataji.
We have to serve the Vaishnavas. That is what pleases Krishna. Think of the insane and the dog, right? What qualification did the dog have to get so much mercy and go back to Godhead? The association with Shivananda. That's the only thing. That is the only way we become dear to the Lord is by being dear to his devotees. If we can develop loving relationships with devotees and serve them with our hearts and soul, then Krishna will even consider looking at us. Because Krishna is definitely going to look at his devotee very lovingly. If we are standing by the side of his devotee, then he will consider us.
Thank you, Mataji. Thanks for such a nice answer. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Krishna. Yeah, Indulekha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for such a sweet class, Mataji. I have some small, very probably silly questions. Mataji, first question was you talked about how Uddhava met the Lord while he was sitting under the shade of the banyan tree, right? So did that happen? Is there any mention of the hunter pastime there or?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. And so the Uddhava Gita was spoken then. And then Uddhava was blessed that he would be able to, go to Vaikunta after this.
Badrikashram.
Yes. Huh? Sorry, Mataji?
After Badrikashram, after giving them,
He would be able to go to Vaikunta Loka. So why was it Vaikunta Loka? Because Uddhava has really relished the Lord in Vrindavan Dham, right? And then
not in Vrindavan Dham, in Dwaraka Mathura Dham, Dwaraka Dham.
but Uddhava went to Vrindavan and there he.
Yeah, but he's not an eternal associate of Krishna in Vrindavan. He aspires, yes, he aspires
Yeah.
to be the blade of grass and serve the Vrajavasis. But
I would not allow him to enter Goloka Vrindavan then?
yes, everything is the spiritual world, right? Dwaraka is also there in the spiritual world. Mathura is there in the spiritual world.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. He doesn't have to necessarily enter the mood of the gopis, but he desires to be a blade of grass where the gopis can trample him.
Right. Okay. Okay. And then when he goes to Badrikashram, you said that he has to pass the message of the Lord to the sages there. So is that how Vyasadeva is then, writing the whole Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto?
So the point is, it is not clearly mentioned there that he went and he specifically spoke to the Gita to Vyasa. Then Vyasa wrote it in the 11th canto. That is not specifically mentioned.
Mm.
But the point is, yes, Srimad Bhagavatam has been heard at different levels. The Supreme Lord, he revealed the Chaturshloki, this chapter also talks about it.
Mm.
Chaturshloki was revealed by the Supreme Lord to Brahma. Brahma then gives it to Narada. Narada inspires Vyasa. Remember in the first canto, Narada inspires Vyasa to write the Srimad Bhagavatam, elaborate, because Vyasa in his meditation, he sees the Lord, his energies, everything, and then he elaborates. Right, then it of course it is edited. It's an edited version of the Bhagavatam because Narada chastises him, telling it's Jugupsitam and all that, and then he edits it and he makes the beautiful version, and then his disciples go and speak to Shukadev Goswami. Shukadev Goswami is, in spite of Shukadev Goswami is adding his relishment.
Right.
And then there is more realizations added to the script now. So that becomes that Parikshit Maharaj is hearing. And then after that, when Parikshit Maharaj was hearing, who was there? Sutta Goswami. There, Sutta Goswami is adding his realization. So you have another coming. And then the same now hear it. And then Vyasadeva again compiles everything, gives it to us. So yes, in one sense, to answer your question, it is not written anywhere that Vyasa was present in Badrikashram and he again heard the Uddhava Gita from Uddhava. That I don't think is there. It could be, I don't know. As far as my mind tells me, I don't remember such a thing. But you can imagine Bhagavatam has different levels of added realization.
Absolutely, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Anyone else has anything? And correct me if I'm wrong or if you want to add anything, please feel free. Yeah, Bharat Prabhu.
As you told, Uddhava went from the Badrika Ashram. So it was a Badrika Ashram which is in Vrindavan or at Uttarakhand, from where he left. Uttarakhand. Okay. Like both are but similar, like which is in Vrindavan, and both have similar importance, or like it differs. The
Yes,
fruit of.
they are similar. They're all the same.
Okay, Mata. Thank you.
Everything in Vrindavan is perfect.
Yeah. Yes, Mata.
Yeah. Okay. So, anything else? Okay. Again, I apologize for fumbling and then giving a very short class, but we'll end here. Thank you all so much. And we'll meet again with the next chapter. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha ananta koti vaishnava vrinda ki jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All the best, all the assembled.
Her Grace Preethivilasini Mataji ki jai.